morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
We have a very interesting collection of real-life adventures, songs, stories, and information this week, and one of the things you'll hear is Baxter Black in his own slightly cross-threaded way doing a tribute to motherhood.
Well, I should mention that I did not run this commentary by my mother before putting it on the air. She may think comparing her to a mama cow was not the smartest thing I've ever done.
And the Rangeland News keeps you on top of trending stories.
And the number of beef cattle ready for market expected to surge in the next month or two, sending cattle prices down.
Oh, darn. And a historic attempt to rope a runaway mare by a cowboy on foot graces the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
And that's when Teddy realized, well, that burning smell is me.
And about my guest this week, Paul Nichols tells us how he made the journey from an Ontario dairy farm to a cowboy's job in the rugged Chilcotin country, and then why he rode his horse from coast to coast in 2015.
Jesus, it's not going to be fun taking a horse through there.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll take you through something that kept me out of a wreck when a logging truck was bearing down on a very nervous horse that I was riding. And a classic song of the West from a real legend, and I know a lot of cowboys who have done this. Ride along on a sunny day and steal a look at the ground and see how your shadow is looking.
My shadow rides along the trail beside me, and I'll admit that I enjoy the company. We're contemplating nature and philosophy, riding down the canyon with my shadow. It's just the two of us wherever we go. He makes the perfect traveling amigo. He leaves the destination up to me, so no one I'd rather ride with than my shadow. You'll always find the two of us together. It doesn't seem to matter where we ride. When evening comes, he fades into the darkness. At sunup, he'll be right back by my side. Perfect harmony. No matter what I say, he doesn't disagree. And I know that we'll be partners for eternity, riding off into the sunset with my shadow. You'll always find the two of us together. It doesn't seem to matter where we ride. When evening comes, he fades into the darkness. At sunup, he'll be right back by my side. My shadow rides along the trail beside me, and I'll admit that I enjoy his company. We're contemplating nature and philosophy, riding down the canyon with my shadow. Just riding down the canyon with my shadow.
A few weeks ago, Billy and I spent a very inspiring day up at Penny Bryn Farm near Kersley, British Columbia, just a bit south of Quesnel, to help Lindsay Chung raise funds for her participation in the Wounded Warriors Battlefield Ride coming up in June. And we met Paul and Terry Nichols, the owners of the Combination Ranch, Bed and Breakfast, Equine Facility, and Music Venue. And I had a great visit with Paul, and I really wanted to find out more about all the time and energy he devotes to the cause of wounded warriors, our military heroes, of which he is one himself. So, Paul, when did you make the move from an Ontario dairy farm to the back of a cow pony in that rugged Chilcotin country?
I left Ontario in it was kind of late 80s, I guess, and not a whole lot happening there. So like a lot of people, it's you go to the call of the West looking for a new start, and I found a new life here.
You grew up on the family dairy farm?
Yeah, my family has been running a dairy farm there for years and years, generations.
Yeah. So 7 days a week, 3:30 in the morning?
Not that early. It's but yeah, up early in the morning, milking cows before you get your own breakfast.
Yeah, for sure. How many did you milk?
It was about around 70, 75 cows in our own barn, and then there was and then down the hill was about that many more again. So
right. Yeah. Did you like it?
Loved it.
Did you? Really?
Yeah.
So it must have been, quite a change when you saw beef cattle and crown ranges and no fences for miles and miles and cows that have never seen a man off a horse on foot.
It was something for me, I tell you. It's like all our cows were gentle and halter broke, and it's and then I got my first job here across the Marguerite Ferry over the Fraser River, and was working out at a friend's ranch. And these cows are half wild and ears frozen off and tails bitten off. It's a wild country out there.
Had you ridden and been around horses before you got out here?
We had a few draft horses, but never really much of I would never call myself a horseman. But it wasn't until I came to the West that really we found horses.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that you really kind of took to this cowboy lifestyle when you got here.
Oh, it's absolutely. It's I love the wide open spaces, and I love the freedom. The guy's got a little bit of room to stretch out, and just and you're judged for who you are.
Yeah. There is no committee doing a performance review to check all your reports and everything and see if you're a competent employee. I mean, the job speaks for itself.
Absolutely, yeah, and and I think there's parallels there between like the cowboy culture and our military culture.
Mm-hmm. And what led you to military service?
I come from a military family. Like my dad was a soldier, my granddad was a soldier, and I think it's just that again. It's that it's a hard life. But just a powerful brotherhood and a strong sense of community. And again, you're judged for who you are.
Mm-hmm. I've just got nothing but respect for law enforcement, peace officers, first responders, military people that I think in some ways you live life at a level that us laymen probably, don't even understand or have never experienced.
Well, I think there's an opportunity to see people at their very, very best in the very worst of conditions, and I think it just gives us a wider breadth of experience.
Mm-hmm. More of Paul Nichols' fascinating story and another fine song of the West, When the Spirit of the West, continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. We're visiting with Paul Nichols at his Penny Bryn Farm this week. Beautiful place with some great horses all around. And Paul, it was in 2015. You got on one of your horses. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at him right out the window right now. You got on him in Victoria, BC, and you rode from coast to coast for a cause that you have a personal connection with. Tell us more.
Okay. The ride across Canada, it's... We'll go back to my personal story. That's sure, of course, where it starts. So I was I did some soldiering for a while. Like I left Ontario, I came west. I had been a reservist. I went back to the Army Reserve in Calgary. From there, I went down to serve with the 2nd Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, back when they were still in Winnipeg. And with the Patricias, I deployed to the former Yugoslavia. So that was Croatia. I was there for Medak. I came home from the Balkans, like fiercely proud of what we'd accomplished, the work that we'd done. Like we'd stopped a genocide, and just very, very proud of what we'd accomplished as Canadian military. I went to the battle school. I instructed infantry courses for a little while. I was a machine gun instructor, Terry and I started having kids, and I made the choice to leave that family and move back to the Caribou. This is Terry's hometown, Quesnel. So I came back to Quesnel, and for me, that's when the war started. I'd left this close brotherhood, this family, and I started again in a community that often thinks of a veteran as a 90-year-old man, and I struggled. I struggled to fit. And I kind of went to a little bit of a dark place for a while.
But I remember we were in Vancouver in this post-transplant period. I had to check in with the medical team twice a week, and we were living in a little suite the Kidney Foundation provided, but it was close to Jericho Beach. And I wanted to get as fit as I could as soon as I could after that. So Billy and I had spent hours walking up and down Jericho Beach, and we walked all the way down to Spanish Banks, and that was all an hour and a half walk from where we started from, and we were looking at the ships. And there's a guy that looked like just anybody you and I would know or be a friend with or ever. He was probably in his, I would say, late 40s maybe, something like that, but, didn't look like a street person or anything like that. We were talking about the ships, and I said, what would their cargo be? Because there's all kinds of them waiting to go in and load. And he says, well, that one's hauling sulfur, and this one is hauling grain, and that one's waiting for a dock, and it'll be going to somewhere. And gosh, you know a lot about that, Were you involved in the Merchant Marine or something? And then it really stopped us in our tracks. He says, no. He said, I'm ex-military, and I'm homeless. Mm-hmm. Whoa. I thought, what's wrong with this country?
Mm-hmm. So that was that story is it's a parallel. It's I know the Canadian people love their troops, they love their veterans. It's, they don't often recognize us for who we are. And when someone is struggling in that time of transition, leaving the military and starting a new civilian life, there can be some pretty significant challenges.
Well, let's get to more about that ride and how it went after a guy who shoes a lot of horses and raises good cattle. This is Doug Figs.
The wide open prairie is spreading out before me as far as my eyes can see. I'm riding along and I've got a song that's enough for a cowboy like me. That's enough for a cowboy like me. A good horse under me, it's easy to see. I'm right here where I want to be. I've got a good woman's love, the blue sky above. That's enough for a cowboy like me. That's enough for a cowboy like me. Settle down, it'll be far from town, someplace where I can see all the stars in the sky, the heavens on high. That's enough for a cowboy like me. That's enough for a cowboy like me. When I die, bury me cross over me. Send my soul up above by lone morning dove. That's enough for a cowboy like me. That's enough for a cowboy like me. That's enough for a cowboy like me. That's enough for a cowboy like me.
And now let's get back to my guest, Paul Nichols.
My own story, like I was kind of mentioning, that bit of a slump I was in that dark place. I had an opportunity where I met a lady in Vancouver who recognized I was wearing a jacket with a regimental crest on it. She recognized it for what it was and asked if I was a Canadian soldier. I said retired now, but yeah, I was a Canadian soldier. And she went on to share her story about living through the siege of Sarajevo. She was a Bosnian refugee. Shared her story with me. They were starving. They'd burnt all their furniture to keep warm. They faced artillery fire every night. Tens of thousands of people have been killed in her neighborhood. This is her family, her neighbors that had been killed in the opening days of that siege. And it was Canadian troops that opened up the airport, Canadian troops that brought her food aid and eventually got her out. And I was the first Canadian that she had met, first Canadian soldier that she had met, and had the opportunity to share this story with her. And I shared my experience of being in the Balkans, and here she is, she's crying, and I was crying, two complete strangers with this shared experience. And that moment changed my life. That recognition, I didn't have to question the time away from home, the time away from family. We lost good Canadian boys in the Balkans, and I didn't have to question the value of that. So there's the power of the shared story and that connection in community. So in 2015, we put together a crew and a great string of horses. We left from Victoria, British Columbia. We started our 211-day ride across the country. And the idea of it was to put as many of our contemporary veterans in the saddle as we could in their own community. So I facilitated a relay across the country. We had 363 Canadian veterans that joined me in the saddle for usually like a half a day, or some a little more, some a little less. You got to make them suffer a little bit just so they got the credibility and bragging rights to say that they actually joined in on the ride, not just a pony ride. And that was the purpose of the ride, was to create this connection and discussion in community. So when people would see this, a little girl with me, and they'd say, like, this is supposed to be a veterans ride. We're like, what is she doing with you? And they're like, well, that little girl is actually a medic from a field hospital. She's got 2 tours in Afghanistan, and she's seen more than probably everyone in this crowd put together. So this is the face of our Canadian veterans, and if we can create that discussion in community, then we can empower these people to be the leaders that they are meant to be in our communities.
Well, Paul, I know there's much more to your story, and we'll get to some of it in just a little while here. But next, it's my old buddy, the beady-eyed bard from Benson, Baxter Black, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, with a little peek at Mother's Day on the farm. Ladies and gentlemen and followers of cowboy humor, in a moment of weakness, I, Baxter Black, have written another book. I appreciate it. Its title is Scrambled Wisdom. Almost isn't is it? Which almost makes sense. Well, our offer does make sense. Only $19.95 plus shipping. A solid gold guarantee. Call 800-654-2550. Online at BaxterBlack.com. This spring through cow country, you probably noticed a bunch of cows walking along strung out in a line. But you noticed that none of their little calves were with them. Well, if you're a cow person, you already know that mama cows were not abandoning their babies. They were simply working mothers who have left them in bovine daycare. Somewhere back in the pasture, you'd find 10 or 20 calves laying in their nursery, watched over by a keen-eyed mama cow. It is a demonstration of mothering ability. We reserve one day a year to recognize Mother's Day, and in my mind it ranks in the top 3 with Christmas and Easter, far above holidays like President's Day, Thanksgiving, Daylight Savings Time, April 15th, Halloween, John Wayne's birthday. Well, many of the memories of our mother that we carry from childhood involve directional measures to keep us headed down the right path in life. Stay out of the ditch, elbows off the table, stand up straight, be home at 9, read a book, wear something decent, cut your hair, wait till your father gets home. Then sometime during adulthood, usually when we have our own kids, we hear ourselves repeating those same directional instructions. Well, what we often don't think about is the primitive reason behind your mother's constant nagging, tinkering, correcting, and guiding of her offspring, which is you. It's not out of love, ambition, or pride. Nope, it is preservation of the species. Just like those mama cows who protect, raise, and teach their calves survival lessons. It's done to carry on the bloodline. Maternal instinct is the deep current beneath the multiplicity of ripples we describe as behavioral traits in cows and humans. Nobody loves you like your mama. Ask any calf or first grader. It comes from way down inside. Well, I should mention that I did not run this commentary by my mother before putting it on the air. She may think comparing her to a mama cow was not the smartest thing I've ever done. Matter of fact, she may feel the need to apply some directional measures to the seat of my pants. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. I love you, Mother.
Just ahead of the rangeland news, we'll take you out to the eastern slopes and that cowboy out there riding point on a good horse. He's straight up in the bridle with reins and romal, and boy, he looks like a consummate buckaroo. Hey, I think it's Keith Ward. And what are you doing?
We're moving cows at Old Bob Creek. Early spring and late in fall, saddles creak and heifers bawl. Coffee's on, start at 7, another day in cowboy heaven. Riding up, riding down, cattle scattered all around. A cowboy game of hide and seek. We're moving cows at Old Bob Creek. Out the gate at a walk, jingle bobs do most the talk. Soon the boss divides the crew. You go with me, I'll go with you. Riding up, riding down, cattle scattered all around. A cowboy game of hide and seek. We're moving cows at Old Bob Creek. Meet at noon by the bridge, cattle seen on every ridge. Depending on the time of year, we push them out or bring them near. Riding up, riding down, cattle scattered all around. A cowboy game of hide and seek. We're moving cows at Old Bob Creek. Ride with Ethan, ride with Fred, 2,250 head. Hope your horse had extra oats, 'cause are they cows or mountain goats? Are they cows or mountain goats? They look like cows, but climb like goats. Riding up, riding down, cattle scattered all around. A cowboy game of hide and seek. We're moving cows at Old Bob Creek. Day is done, we're heading back. Horses tired and reins are slack. Load your trailer, load your gear, hit the road and disappear. Riding up, riding down, cattle scattered all around. A cowboy game of hide and seek. We're moving cows at Old Bob Creek. Moving cows, moving cows, moving.
Now the Rangeland News on the Spirit of the West. This roundup of news and coming events from cattle drives to horse shows.
At the top of page 1, it says we are into barbecue season now, and more folks will be looking for steaks. But will they resist the prices at the meat counter? Well, more cattle being produced in North America means lower prices both at the meat counter and at the sale yard, according to this report from Gary Crawford.
For the rest of this year, including the upcoming grilling season.
There's going to be a lot of meat out there?
A lot, and that could bring retail beef prices down. That's Agriculture Department livestock analyst Shale Shagam. This year, we're looking at production increases for pork, 4.7% increase, chicken, 1.5%, beef, the biggest hike, at least 5.5%, and Shagam says that's already bringing beef prices down.
If we look at our usual choice beef retail value calculated by USDA, we are talking about a price in March of about $5.87 per pound for the retail price, which is down about 3 cents from a year ago.
And the number of beef cattle ready for market expected to surge in the next month or two, sending cattle prices down.
And we would expect probably to see those prices at retail reflect the lower cattle prices.
So by Memorial Day weekend, we could see prices for beef below last year, especially with supermarket grilling specials. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
For the 15th consecutive year, the Montana Beef Council has teamed up with Wendy's to help promote Montana's beef cattle industry. For beef checkoff investors, it's an example of what the Montana Beef Council Board decides to invest with the 50 cents of every dollar per head collected that stays in the state. And speaking of partnerships, Genome Alberta is partnering with Alberta Agriculture on the Alberta Applied Agricultural Genomics Program, and the program will provide funding for genomics-based research projects up to $250,000 over a period of 2 years. Research proposals participating in a larger national or international efforts are strongly encouraged. For example, understanding stress response of crops at the genomic level offers a better understanding of adaptation strategies, while biomarker-informed breeding programs provide the strategy for delivering the appropriate traits to the right regions in support of a healthy ecosystem. Alberta beef producers are seeking nominations for the 2019 Environmental Stewardship Association Award. The award recognizes cattle producers whose natural resource stewardship practices contribute to the environment and enhance productivity and profitability. And nomination forms are available at the ABP website, albertabeef.org/page/environment from the ABP office, or you can get them from your local Alberta Beef Producers Delegate. And in case you missed it, the winners of the Red Deer Main Event Trainers Challenge, well, the champion again was Cade Mills, who captured his third title with a wonderful buckskin filly from Ace of Clubs Quarter Horses. The other trainers were Alex Alves from Strathmore and Jason Irwin from Port Elgin, Ontario. And this was one of the closest competitions, I think, in the history of the event. And we are sure looking forward to the next big Ivan Danes Country Music Picnic and the Open Trainers Challenge, and that runs August the 9th to the 12th at the Danes Ranch at Innisfail, Alberta. I'll be there with the Western Spirit Band, and then on September the 7th, the boys and I will be at the Old McDonald's Music Festival. Actually, we'll perform on Saturday, September the 8th, and the whole venue is on the south shore of Buffalo Lake near Erskine. A long time ago, my wife Billy learned how to water ski on Buffalo Lake. Anyway, we'll be on not long after the Alberta Legends of Country Music, and tickets are only available by calling this number, 403-742-6603. 403-742-6603. And then we get back for Just Time to Pack, and then we're off on the 17th annual Spirit of the West cruise down through the St. Lawrence River, the Maritimes, the coast of New England, and winding up in New York City. And for more information, just call the toll-free number 1-800-530-0131. Next regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Williams Lake Yards is May 24th, and the next Kamloops sale is May 29th. And June the 1st, the Vanderhoof regular sale. Meanwhile, out of the Innisfail auction market, family-owned and operated by the Danes family for a long, long time, regular cattle sales every Wednesday. Butcher cows and bulls start at 9 in the morning, followed by calves and yearlings, bred cows and pairs at noon. And the next horse sale is May the 26th, and they have a big machinery sale June the 26th. You can get all the details at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com, and that takes us down to the final item. And I was having some trouble the other day, which is unusual for me. I had a hard time talking, but I finally figured out what happened. You see, when we were up at Penny Bryn Farm, it was a bit windy, my lips were kind of chapped, and I saw what I thought was a tube of lip balm on the coffee table. So I spread it on my lips. And a little while later, Billy said, "I'm sticking some of our ranch photos onto these greeting cards. Have you seen my glue stick? I thought I left it on the table." And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, something I did to keep a nervous mount under control while a pretty scary logging truck bore down on us on a country road. And more of Paul Nichols' epic ride from coast to coast when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Okay, now you're riding your young horse along a quiet country road and he's doing okay. And then you hear a noise behind you. Your horse's head comes up, his eyes get wide, and you feel the tension rising in him. You look back, and it's a logging truck coming up behind you. So what do you do to stay safe? Well, I'll tell you about my recent episode on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File coming right up. The 17th annual Spirit of the West Cruise will be something unforgettable. My wife Billy and I will be hosting a big group of ranchers, farmers, horse and cattle folks, and Spirit of the West listeners for a trip I know many of you have had on your bucket list for a long time. September 16th, 2018, we will sail out of Quebec City and cruise Canada's maritime provinces in all the glory of the fall colors, including stops in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Sydney and Halifax, Nova Scotia, St. John, New Brunswick and the Bay of Fundy, Bar Harbor, Maine, Boston, Portland, Maine, and Cape Liberty, New Jersey, with an optional stay in New York City. Now, just for the Spirit of the West group, we have a tour of a cattle operation in Nova Scotia. We'll have all our great Western music concerts and sing-alongs, and we'll be swapping lots of ranching stories. And we'll have a lot of special activities just for our group. You'll find more details on the cruise section of our website at hugh-mclennan.com and on our cruise Facebook page, and you can always call the toll-free number 1-800-530-0131.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Some folks spend their springtime on a patio.
This Bellini is simply scrumptious.
Ah, that's nice, but hey, I'd rather spend it in the grandstand with the dust, mud, and roar of the crowd. And if you prefer the rodeo scene like me, head for Urban Tack and Western Wear. Boots, belts, jeans, shirts, hats, accessories, the top names, great prices, suit up in style this rodeo season. Urban's is Canada's largest Western store, easy to find at exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield.
Don't just wear it, live it. Urban Tack and Western Wear.
I have never seen a selection of jeans, every make you can imagine, every style, every size, like they have at Irvine's. Oh my gosh, I tried on about a dozen pair when we were there just ahead of the main event. Anyway, it was an early spring afternoon and the snow was too deep to ride anywhere but on the road, and it was one of her first rides after being off all winter. And it was going well as I headed down the narrow gravel road, and I went for a couple of miles, then turned around and was heading back up the road towards home when I heard the roar and the rattle coming up behind us. And my mare's usually pretty good in traffic, but this was really loud. I looked around and saw that it was our neighbor Vince coming home in his big logging truck with the tandem trailer decked up on the frame. And all that rigging, rattling, and the roar of that big Cummins motor was getting her pretty upset. What do? Well, I turned her around so at least she could see where all the commotion was coming from. And then Vince stops right beside us, puts it on high idle, and he wants to visit for a while. Well, the mare was not interested in standing still beside that truck. And I was still healing up from my surgery, and I could step off, but I wasn't sure if I could get back on. So I stayed aboard, and I said, Vince, just drive away slowly, and I'll go up behind like I'm chasing you. So I got in position behind him as he slowly drove up the hill, and when my horse saw the truck moving away, she did get the idea we were chasing it, and her confidence came back, and it was just like we followed hundreds of cows and bulls. And her whole attitude went from fear to curiosity and then complete confidence. Now that once again proves the very important point that when something movable is kind of scary, if it moves away and the horse can move towards it, it's no longer a threat. Works with vehicles, cattle, other horses, coyotes, and I've even done it with a few bears. And for Urban Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Something else that keeps our horses doing well is that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration, and you can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. Well, as Billy and I were driving up to Penny Bryn Farm, we had some of our favorite music playing in the pickup, and American Cowboy by Rusty Richards rolled through twice. It was so good. And I realized that I hadn't played many songs from Rusty Richards in the last few years on the show. The question was which one. They were all so good, but Billy picked this one, Early Morning Trails.
While walking down a lonely street, so far away from home, I came upon an old-time cowboy sitting all alone. I asked him if he had the time just to give my own away. And when he saw my boots and hat, this is what I heard him say. Time is all that I have now, and won't you please sit down? I haven't seen another cowboy since I came to town. Then he told me how his health had failed, how they brought him here to rest, and how he missed the old-time trails through the beauty of the West. Then the old man spoke of things we love, as all us cowboys do, like starry nights and campfires and glistening morning dew. Of horses good and bad he'd known, wild cattle he had run. Then he said the things I miss the most came with the morning sun. I long to saddle up and ride down early morning trails and breathe the fragrance only God can give to misty vales. I long to hear the silence broken only by the dawn, whose rustling brings a time when wild things start to stretch and yawn. You know, if you can spare the time, you'll find that it's worthwhile to spend some with the old folks. Just listen, nod and smile. I won't forget his sparkling eyes as he told his cowboy tales on the day that I rode with him down those early morning trails.
Rusty Richards, 10 years with us, no, 20 years with the Sons of the Pioneers. Beautiful tenor voice there. Great horseman, trainer, and sadly, Rusty lost his great paint horse, Traveler, just a few weeks ago. Traveler had just passed his 30th birthday, and Rusty had won all kinds of trophies, including saddles and hardware, team roping, and other competitions with Traveler, and rode him in countless parades and events. He sure will be missed. Now it's back to Paul Nichols, who rode from coast to coast to raise awareness for wounded warriors in 2015.
We used to hear quite a bit about the Trans-Canada Trail. I remember, 6, 8, 10 years ago, there was a lot of discussion about it. Haven't heard near as much lately, but were you able to travel on some of that?
Yeah, the Trans-Canada Trail is really, it's an amazing network. They completed it last year for Canada 150. They linked the final pieces together. I was actually made a Trans-Canada Trail champion. It's we used a lot of that. Most of the major cities, I think all the capital cities in Canada have a section of the Trans-Canada Trail that goes through it. So we rode our horses through, right through Edmonton, Calgary. We went through Saskatoon, downtown, right through downtown Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City. Yeah.
Wow. And you were saying that in some of the towns in Ontario, when those street networks were originally built, they weren't designed for SUVs and 3/4-ton long box crew cab pickups. They were designed mainly for horses and buggies.
Yeah, it was. I was really worried when we were taking our horses through some of these old communities. Like I've driven my car through them, driven the truck through Montreal, and I was like, Jesus, it's not going to be fun taking a horse through there. And then, but as we were riding through the streets, it's really amazing. part of the reason why those streets are so difficult to drive through is because they weren't built for cars, they were built for horses. So the grade is gentle, there's lots of switchbacks for climbing the hills, and it's easy on the horses. And a lot of, like Kingston has them, Montreal has water troughs. There's a lot of these old cities that have that still have working water troughs.
My gosh. You know, there's nobody that I know anymore that's old enough to remember this but me, possibly Billy, but I grew up in Edmonton. And at that time, I mean, our milk came to the front door with a milk wagon pulled by either one horse, or if they had to go down into the river valley and up the hills, it was a team pulling the milk wagon. The iceman for all the ice boxes, the ice wagon was drawn by horses. The bread man came around with a horse-drawn bread wagon, and the garbage man went up the back alley with his team of horses and picked up the garbage. And there were horse troughs on all the main streets. I mean, they're long gone, but I clearly remember that.
Yeah, it's Ottawa has them kind of at the front steps of Parliament. You have to, on the way towards the Byward Market, you got to kind of go off the beaten track a little bit to find them, but they're still there.
Well, there's much, much more to Paul's story, and we'll try to bring you another chapter next week. And as we drove home from Kearsley after meeting Lindsay Chung and Paul and Terry and a bunch of other great folks, this song came on the pickup CD player, and I thought immediately about Paul's journey and about how it was when it came to an end.
The trail end. It's been a long time coming. Old Chip and old Hank are making their last ride. Those Kansas hills, full of beauty and wonder. The trail end will never end for these two friends. 5,000 miles, hundreds of trails. This horse and cowboy feel like Colt and Kid. Not a challenge unanswered by this aged Appaloosa. A race is won and freedom will always be their life. Long road ahead with storm clouds a-building. Mother Nature's fury, but there's blue in those western skies. The trail end for these two old compadres. The trail end will only end with his lost love. Complete at the small town of Dayton, alone in the distance, a graveyard looms. Hank's rode to his Lily with his parents by her side. That lays her a gift that has taken most of his life. A resting place for this horse and rider. His love is at peace The trail end, yes, it will end with his lost love. The trail end, yes, it has ended with his lost love.
Gotta love that guy's voice, just a pure cowboy sound, and it's authentic. He's a ranch manager from Oklahoma, Gary Pratt. Well, coming up next, our classic Song of the West and the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight. You're gonna like it when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Time for another classic Song of the West, and this week we'll go back to a 1947 recording on the old RCA Bluebird label. It was a 78, and there's kind of a cute story here. The late Ian Dalglish was a neighbor of ours for many years. We rented pasture from him, rode with him moving his cattle, and bought hay from him, and he was a fine fiddle player. Spent a lot of happy hours playing guitar while he played fiddle on so many of those great old tunes, but he told me he and his brother had a huge collection of Wilf Carter 78s on that RCA Bluebird label. And I said, where are they now? And he said, well, we loved shooting clay targets with our 12 gauges, and one weekend we ran out of clay pigeons, so we brought that box of old 78 RPM records and threw them up in the air, and yeah, we shot them all. Well, here's one that survived, and if you lived in southern Alberta in the 40s and 50s, you would have heard one of Wilf's songs on CFAC every morning at 7:20 a.m., and that tradition went on for about 20 years. So from a 78 that Ian and Neil missed, here's Hang the Key on the Bunkhouse Door.
Bunch of jolly cowboys, when roundup days were done, decided they would head for town to have a little fun. As they rode gaily down the trail, they could hear the old cook say, I'll hang the key on the bunkhouse door, and boys, don't you be late. Hang the key on the bunkhouse door, 'cause we'll be late tonight. Don't leave the light a-burning, dear, we may not look right. The trail is long, the going tough, and someone may get tight. So hang the key on the bunkhouse door, 'cause we'll be late tonight. Hang the key on the bunkhouse door, 'cause we'll be late tonight. Don't leave a light a-burning, dear, we may not look right. The trail is long, the going tough, someone may get tight. So hang the key on the bunkhouse door, 'cause we'll be late tonight. Those city gals are lots of fun, but they can't see our way. Swinging through the old square dance, they call us ornery stray. All dressed in chaps and jingling spurs, we sang with all our might. Hang the key on the bunkhouse door, 'cause we'll be late tonight. Hang the key on the bunkhouse door, 'cause we'll be late tonight. Don't leave a light a-burning, dear, we may not look right. The trail is long, the going tough, someone may get tight. So hang the key on the bunkhouse door, 'cause we'll be late tonight.
And now, here's Tom Swearington from a live performance.
Well, Teddy Frank of the Morrow Ranch was out mending fence alone when coming to his attention was a charging wild-eyed roan. Closing fast, that big, spooked, crazed mare was running for all she's worth. Her nostrils flared, her ears pinned flat, a cyclone of hooves and earth. The mere sight of that hell-bent hoss would leave most men quite rattled. especially if, like Teddy was, surprised, on foot, unsaddled. Yeah, most men would duck, dive, or run, but not Teddy, no siree. He conjured himself up a plan he'd not let that wild mare flee. Teddy, recall, was all alone. Most people would say outmanned, but not those who know Teddy Frank, because he is one tough hand. Surveying the situation, he figures his only hope would be one chance when she run by. He'd collect her with his rope. He'd toss a big old floating loop that would sail out o'er her ears. She'd know right quick she was bested. Let go her primal fears. Oh, she'd settle down real sudden-like. They'd become the best of friends. But that's not how the story goes. No, that's not how the story ends, because the little wrinkle in Teddy's quick thought plan, the absence of a saddle. You can't just dally one by hand. But now that mare's upon him, in a flash she'd be on by, so now or never, he figured, and he let his catch twine fly. And then his plan adjusted some, because that horse sped up her run, and that's when Teddy realized his battle was just begun. With no horn wraps to slow her down, he run with her best he could. All the time he's thinking, another hand would sure be good. Well, that horse was building up some steam. They were covering lots of ground. Old Teddy had his hands full, but took time to look around. He spots a lone white oak approaching. He figures that'll slow her down. So seizing opportunity, he runs some dallies round. Well, now I've caught her, Teddy thought, with 3 dallies around that oak. Breathed a big old sigh of relief. And detects a whiff of smoke. Was an odor some familiar, although not that of burning tree. And that's when Teddy realized, well, that burning smell is me. 3 dallies around an oak tree, Teddy says he has now learned, ain't near enough to stop a horse, which is why his hands now burn. But rather than feeling defeated, Teddy takes it all in stride. He says, oh, it's just skin, a jump start on callousing up his hide. But next time, Teddy says, if needing to stop a runaway hoss, next time he'll be in the saddle, and then we'll see who's boss.
He's good, isn't he? Well, thank you so much for making the ride, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And thanks again to our support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan at Meadow Springs Yes Ranch. Remember, you can find just about any parts you need at bctractorparts.com. And another great issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine is out. You can subscribe at cowboycountrymagazine.com. One more thing. Please support Curtis Anderson's 14th annual trail ride for brain injury awareness next weekend, May the 26th. Always a terrific time. Entertainers this year will be Ryan, Fritz, and Bryce West. For more information, you can call Curtis 780-581-4802. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.